I'm Chris from Telfield Customs. The Ecoboost Mustang has been a huge success for Ford over the years because of the horsepower that the turbo produces. With a few modifications, we know that we can get that 310 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque to a lot more. The easiest modification that you can do is adding a larger diameter downpipe. Here we have CV Fabrications 3-inch full-body downpipe. The stainless steel gasket is a significant upgrade other than the one that comes with the package. This thing prevents leaks and it also prevents burns. As you guys can tell, you are getting what you are paying for. The welds on this downpipe are really mind-blowing. I really like the way that these downpipes are put together. I don't see any imperfections into their welds. Very beautiful. I love it. Now, as you guys can see, that the downpipe is a little different than any other ones that are out in the market today. You have one O2 sensor up here, which this is your upstream, and then you have your downstream on the bottom side of the catalytic converter. Now, as you guys can see, this catalytic converter is a lot smaller. It is definitely more free-flowing. It's going to allow that turbo to breathe better, to put out the power that you desire. This 3-inch downpipe is a direct fit OEM factory exhaust or your aftermarket 3-inch exhaust. They include all the hardware, so you don't need to worry about the hardware. They do include the clamps as well. Today, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the tools you're going to need and the steps that you're going to have to take ordinary to get this 3-piece downpipe on your turbo. The first tools you're going to need is a lift or jack and jack stands, 3/8 ratchet, 11mm socket, 13mm socket, 15mm socket, 19mm socket, short extension, 15mm wrench, oxygen wrench, or 22mm. Two bolts that we're going to be needing to hit first are going to be the one on the flange to the turbo. Take your 15mm with your wrench, and you're going to back them off in a pattern. The first one we're going to go ahead and do . After you're done backing off those two nuts off of the flange that holds it onto the turbo, you're going to come over to your oxygen sensor harness, and it's attached to the back of the high pressure fill pump bracket. You're going to go ahead and remove that from the high pressure fill pump bracket, and we're going to disconnect this oxygen sensor from its harness. There's a little tab button right here at the very top. You're going to put a lot of force into that, and you're just going to pull it off. Now that we are under the vehicle, you're going to see your catalytic converter hanger that bolts right onto the transmission. We're going to take both of those bolts right there that are bolted to the transmission off. Before you go ahead and take off the whole entire thing and remove the bolts that are holding it to the transmission, you're going to want to come to the bottom of the catalytic converter and just get them loose. So that way you don't have to fight it when it's off the car. You're going to want to support the catalytic converter before you take off the top one. The top bolt support the catalytic converter. You don't want it to fall on your face. Right about here, you're going to notice that mine is different than yours because you have a resonator. I don't. I have a custom welded wide pipe. You're going to have a clamp that looks similar to this. It's going to be two 15mm bolts. You're going to go ahead and unloosen those. You don't have to take off the collar. You can leave the collar on there and just pull the downpipe that connects to it completely off. There's a few things that we need to take off from the stock OEM downpipe, and that's going to be your upstream, your downstream, and the bracket. Now you don't want to mess these up or mix them up. These are very sensitive. Your upstream is going to go right here. Take your upstream. Now do this by hand, don't use tools, because these can easily strip out. Take your oxygen sensor tool. You're just going to want to tighten her up. We're going to back the downstream off. Now we got the upstream and the downstream. Those are done. Now we move on to the bracket that you're going to need. And for the bracket, these two nuts right here are 13 millimeters. So you're going to grab your bracket, you're going to put your bracket up, grab the provided nut, and you're going to slide the nut underneath. The best way to do is just to put your finger on it and just hold it flush with the pipe to give you enough room to get it in there. And you're going to take your mount, stick your mount on the top, grab your provided screw, and the washer and the bolt to this side. There's two ways you can do this. You can do this part off the car or under the car, whatever you prefer. It doesn't change. You're going to go ahead and take your stainless steel gasket that you upgraded to. Well, I hope you did. Like I said, this is going to help prevent leaks and it's going to help prevent burning. What you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to take your multi-layer gasket, set it up on the turbo. You're going to grab your downpipe that connects to the turbo. I'm going to bring her up. Slide her on. You're going to let her hang. Now we got to go back to the top. And we got to put the bolts on there so that way this pipe doesn't fall off and smack us in the face. But what we need to do is we need to brace this bracket right here to this. We're going to leave those loose because, like I said, up there, you want to make sure that the flange is perfectly sealed to that turbo. Here we are back up at the top, and you're going to do this in patterns. You don't want this side to be more torqued down than the other side because that will cause lift and that will cause leaks. So let's make sure that we torque them down. You know, if you're twisting this one 5 times or 10 times, make sure you keep a count. Don't let it get flat before you stop turning it. Make sure that they're both flat before you start torquing it. What we're going to do is we're going to go back underneath the car. I'm going to tighten those bolts up with this 5/8. So I'm going to start off with this clamp here. And you're going to have one holding it up there. Right after you get the one on the resonator done, the next one is going all the way down to where your adapter pipe goes onto the 3-inch pipe. You're going to turn it one way. Make sure that it's lined up. Okay, our pipe is lined up. Now you're going to tighten this down until, well, you can't tighten anymore. Once you have tried to pull your pipe apart and making sure that this clamp is 100% on there, now we're going to go ahead and tighten the one that's in the beginning of the flex pipe that bolts onto the downpipe. Don't forget to plug back your O2 sensor. And put the clip back into the mounting spot on top of the transmission. You'll definitely see the 2 holes up there. Now we're going to move on to this clamp here. Alright guys, now your main clamp here that goes down from your turbo to your flex pipe is tight now. Make sure that you can try to pull them apart, and if they don't wiggle or move or anything like that, make sure you check the gaps around the whole entire exhaust clamp and make sure it's bolted down to no end. Try to get it bolted down. The best thing to use is an impact, and that will definitely get this down as tight as possible. Make sure that all your clamps are tight as possible and you don't see any major gaps going on, because that will indicate an exhaust leak. So make sure that you do not have any leaks going on around your exhaust. The best way to do it, like I said, is to double check your work. Make sure that you plug in your downstream oxygen sensor. Let's go up and then plug in our upstream. Now we're at the top here. You're going to see your upstream oxygen sensor. Go ahead and plug her back in. And then you're going to clip the back piece back into the back side of your high pressure fuel pump bracket. You want to save this for last because it's going to allow you to make sure that you get all your pipes aligned. It also makes sure that your gasket on your turbo going down to your downpipe is completely tight. So that's why you leave this loose. You leave all your clamps loose. Try to get that as tight as you can for a better seal. You definitely want to make sure that you get a really good seal on that, because that's the most common spot to leak. Now that we have secured it all, for the most part, everything looks pretty secure to me. I'm checking everything over as I'm underneath here. I'm always checking the gasket. You always want to make sure that that is completely tight. You can go ahead and start tightening down the bolts that bolt onto the transmission. And this one, like I said, is a half. I'm just going to hold the nut